I forgot to film an intro. Let's do that real quick. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. If this isn't a welcome, let me turn off my fan. Oh my God. If this isn't a welcome back, let me introduce myself. My name's Chris. I know how to read. Allegedly. Let's kick it back to like Chris from like 15 minutes ago when I filmed the first part of this video, but Brave New World is back, episode 2. Let's get it started and find out how many pages we're going to be reading today. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the series on my channel, Brave New Roll, where I roll this right here, a 20-sided die. I add a 0 to whatever number I get, and then that's how many pages I'm going to be reading for that day. If you haven't seen the first time that I did this, you can click on the thing popping up on screen right now. That turned into me reading Crime and Punishment for the entire video, but I hope things work out a little bit differently in this video. And that's actually because there's a lot of books that I actually want to either finish or put a dent in this week's video. First up, I've talked about it on the channel a lot, A People's History of the United States, nonfiction history told from the point of view of the oppressed and not the oppressors. And then I also busted out this thing right here, the Kindle, which I haven't used in a very long time, because I was able to grab The Three-Body Problem by Liu Cixin, translated by Ken Liu. And this is a book I've heard decent things about. I know it got turned into like a Netflix series or something like that, but I'm truly basing this entire choice off of Shane Top from, not from iCarly, I almost said iCarly, Shane Top from Smosh, who recommended this book and they said it was very good.
Three-Body Problem is such a sick series. Overall, the like overarching story is so awesome.
We have science fiction, we have historical nonfiction, and then if somehow, some way, we get through both of these books in this video, we also have the handy dandy TBR jar that I made a few videos ago. But we first have to decide how many pages I'm actually going to be reading today. So let's get that set up. All right, let's see how many pages we are reading today. And I don't know if y'all could tell, but that is a very healthy, very chunky 18. And I think we're gonna start out with The Three-Body Problem, mostly because I haven't used my Kindle in a long time and I wanna use it, but we rolled an 18. We're gonna be reading 180 pages today. That's definitely nothing to sneeze at. So let's get started now. It is currently about 5 p.m. Hopefully I can knock this out in a few hours and still have some time to do degenerate things later on tonight. I love a list of characters. That's so dope, especially when I'm reading like translated works, being able to have names of everybody and at least like a very small description of them. That's awesome. I love this. So after I filmed that section of the video, I immediately took a nap, which isn't a great way to start a reading vlog. But it has been a few hours later, and now I am currently on page 100 out of 399. I don't know if this will ever focus. 111, excuse me, out of 399 of The Three-Body Problem. And it has been an enjoyable read so far. I will say though that the entirety of these 111 pages has been set up, has been kind of laying out the world and the characters that we are going to be like with for the next 399 pages. And while I enjoy that, and that's typically like my style of reading, like I love a very fleshed out world or fleshed out characters specifically, I kind of want to get to like the meat and potatoes of what's going on right now. So far we've done a lot of jumping between characters and between their own struggles, between the struggles of the world. We're also shuffling between like real life and a video game that this one character is playing, and we're also shuffling between like timelines and stuff like that. The story is told in a non-linear fashion, so we're also following timelines, and it's just like a lot to start out with, if that makes sense. My TV has turned into Roku City mode, so I apologize for the light change. So I'm hoping that these last 79 pages can kind of build on, not even build upon, I want the house to be built. What these past 111 pages have made, I want these next 79 pages that I have to read today, I want that to build the house that the foundation has been set for, if that makes sense, right? Because like, I know something is coming, I know all of these characters and all of their problems. Like a lot of this book, or at least the beginning of this book, takes place during the Cultural Revolution in China, and it's like, all right, let's see what that has to do with the rest of the story. A video game has been introduced with like a full body, almost VR headset type of suit that one of our characters is using. I want to see what the game that they're playing has to do with everything. So I'm hoping that what I have left to read today can kind of flesh out what I've already read and kind of just provide some answers, because up to this point, like I said, it's been a lot of exposition and a lot of giving us information, and I kind of want the author to start talking more about like what we're going to do with that information. I like the author's writing style though. I think the prose isn't like too above our heads, you know, it's dealing with a lot of technological stuff and it doesn't feel like I'm missing anything out, just like with my base knowledge of how the world works. And I will say that having the character list at the beginning of the book has proved to be very helpful. But I'm going to take a little break right now. It's been a few hours of just solid straight reading. I have some Sour Patch Kids. I took a walk to the neighborhood gas station. I got a Coke Zero, and I think I'm just going to chill out for a bit before I get to reading. This is one of those books where it was a little bit more difficult with Crime and Punishment. Why did it get so dark all of a sudden? Am I Batman? But one of the things I like about this book is that, like, I know for a fact before I go to sleep, I can finish these 79 pages. With Crime and Punishment, although I really, really loved the book, it kind of got difficult at some points because it was so much, like, high-level conversation. But I enjoyed Crime and Punishment, and I'm definitely enjoying this. So I'm going to take a little break, I'm going to eat my snacks, and then we're going to hop right back into it. I think I'm going to catch up with y'all tomorrow morning to do a little recap of what I read so far and to do our next roll, and hopefully get some more B-roll, because I know I didn't get any today, but I'll catch up with y'all tomorrow. All right, y'all, so it is the next day, and I was able to finish my 180 pages of the 3-body problem last night. And by last night, I mean this morning, because I stayed up till like 3:30 in the morning to get the reading done. But some of the things that I talked to y'all about when I kind of checked in with y'all around the 110, 111 page range did end up happening. So some of the threads that have been laid out over the first 100 pages have like started to come together, right? So we have better understanding of the impact that the Chinese Cultural Revolution had on where we are now in modern day in the story. We have a better understanding of what our characters are doing and what their impact is on the journey that we're going to go on in the second half of this book. And I'm just happy we're getting answers, right? So like the first 125, maybe even 150 of the 180 pages I read yesterday were all just set up and trying to figure stuff out and like having more questions than answers. So the fact that now we're getting answers, I think is a really solid conclusion to the first half of this book. And the reason I say first half is because 180 pages actually got me to, I think, like 46 or 47% of the way through the book. This book is 399 pages, so I don't know how many pages we're going to read today, but I'm assuming that if we get another like 1 or 2 high numbers on our rolls, that we will probably be able to finish this book before the end of the week. And I didn't know that this book was part of a set, so I think there's 3 books in the 3-body problem like story, which makes sense, I guess. So if the other books are available on Libby, I don't think I'm gonna have a problem with reading those, just because I'm enjoying this first one a pretty decent amount. But I don't want to set myself up, I don't want to get my hopes too high. So far so good, I'm enjoying this book. If I like it when I finish it, sure, I'll read the other ones, but I'm not gonna put too much pressure on myself. Let's figure out how many pages we're gonna read today. Honestly, this is a pretty good angle. Like, I think y'all would like to see more angles of me like this. All right, let's see how many pages we're going to be reading today. Roll number 2. Only 20 pages. I don't know if y'all can see. That, my good friends, is a 2 right there. But today has been a pretty rushed morning. I slept in late. I have to go into work a little earlier than usual. So reading 20 pages, I think, actually works out for my schedule. So I really thank you, Luck of the Die, because I appreciate it. But I'll catch up with y'all tonight. And like I said, I'm probably going to end up reading a little more than 20 pages because I'm enjoying this book so far. But we'll deal with that later on tonight when I get home from work. See y'all soon. It is the next day, and I ended up reading 29 pages yesterday. I am on page 209 out of 399, so we've officially crossed over into the second half of this book. I think the only thing I have that I don't love about this book is how much of it was just setting up this like second half or the second 2/3 of the book. It was really about 150 pages of setup, which is a lot, but when you're dealing with sci-fi and establishing a universe, I can kind of understand why it's that much, but I can also see why it'd be a little like unappealing to certain readers. But with that said, it's day 3 of this challenge, and I want to see exactly how much we're going to be reading today. So we got the upside down Brave New Roll box. We're going to see how many pages we are going to be reading today. So let's get to it. And it's right in the corner. I don't know if y'all could see the little tip of the die right there, but it's right at the corner. That is an 8 right there. So we are going to be reading 80 pages for today. And that's not bad at all. That'll get us to page 300 and change, so we'll be in like the last 25% of the book. And so far, while it's not my favorite book on the planet, I can definitely say it is a page turner. Like, reading 180 pages of this was much easier than reading large chunks of like Crime and Punishment or even People's History when I was reading People's History pretty heavy. I have a little bit of time before work, and then whatever I don't finish before, I will finish after work. 80 pages, a good chunk of reading. Let's go. We are on page 237 out of 399, so I was able to read like 30 pages before I left this morning, and so now I have about 60 more to go. Do I know how to do math? No, I don't. But I want to talk about spoilers real quick for this book. In this book, we're following these bunch of like scientists and kind of like intellectual people, right? We find out that this like government agency has been trying to and eventually was successful in communicating with aliens. And these people are going through a struggle, right? Because they don't understand on their planet, in their world, kind of the rotation that their suns go on. Because they have 3 suns, and they constantly go through these periods of chaotic eras when the suns are too close and everything catches on fire and their world ends, or stable eras where like the suns aren't too close, the suns aren't too far away, like everything's okay. We also find out that there's this video game, and I'm not at a part currently where I understand how this video game like comes to be. But in this video game, you have real players, like real human players, who are kind of taking like Avatar-like bodies and trying to solve the problem of the 3-sun rotation for the Trisolarians. But kind of what I've gotten so far, and I don't know if this is going to actually happen in the book, but what I think is going to happen is if the aliens can't figure out the rotation of their 3 suns, they're just going to come to Earth, take over Earth, and live on a planet that can actually, like, you can predict the rotation of the sun. And that's obviously bad, right? Like, you don't want aliens completely taking over and terrorizing humans and the planet Earth, right? But for whatever reason, I just, like, don't care, you know? Like, this book does so much and so far has done, I would argue, a pretty good job at, like, laying out everything that's going on, laying out kind of what's gotten humanity to this point, what's gotten the Trisolarians up to this point. But for whatever reason, I haven't really found characters that I like super care about. And they're called characters, right? So I should be caring about them. So I don't know if there's going to be more of that in the second half of this book, but I really hope there is, because like I said, obviously aliens coming to Earth and taking over is bad, but I kind of just don't care. Like, I don't feel like I've been given a reason to care about what's happening so far. And I know that this is part of a series and this is just book 1, so I'm sure they kind of delve into that more as the series goes on. But I've only heard about the first book and I haven't heard about any of the other ones, so I'm assuming that the later books are not that good. But like I said, we have 50 more pages to go. I'm going to finish my reading for today and then I'll catch up with y'all tomorrow morning. So I finished my 80 pages yesterday and I think I got to 83 pages. Your boy's an overachiever. And one of the things I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready to film this was that, like, these 80 pages have been where, like, all the meat and potatoes of this book so far have been in, right? Like, we got inklings of the setup of the main story of kind of the universe that we're being set in the first, like, 200 pages, and now these 80 pages are where, like, stuff is starting to get real. And now we're about 70% of the way through the book, give or take. And my worry is that because it's taken nearly half of the book to get to this point, I'm worried we're going to get a weird ending. Not a bad ending. And maybe I'm just realizing now that I don't love series. Like, this is the first time I've read a book knowing that there are, like, sequels or follow-ups to this book and being kind of like about it, if that makes sense. Because there have been moments in this book, specifically in these last like 20 or 40 pages, that I've really enjoyed. Like, all of the setup that's been done so far to get to where we are now, I don't think has been worth it so far, in my opinion. Like, I've definitely read books where they have had like really long setups and like the payoff is there and it's substantial. So far, I'm not feeling like the payoff in this book is like incredibly substantial, in my opinion. but we still have about like 120 pages, give or take. So let's figure out how many pages we're gonna read today and kind of see if this whole story that we're experiencing in this first book, I think in a trilogy if I'm not mistaken, first story in a trilogy, let's see if it's gonna end up being worth it at the end of the day. I'm so good at angles, bro, I promise. All right, let's see what we get for day 4 of Brave New Roll, episode 2. 4. We get 4. I don't know if y'all could tell. I don't want to mess with the roll right here. We have gotten a 4. That's going to get us to page 320 out of 399. So we're creeping towards the end of this book at a pretty steady pace. Depending on how I'm feeling, I might read a little more than 40 pages just because I have the time today, which I don't normally have. I also stopped reading last night at probably like the first like really dramatic moment that has happened in this book, so I'm sure that kind of energy is going to keep me going.
One day later.
I am on page 331 of the 3-body problem. Come on, focus. There we go, buddy. I'm proud of you. And I think no matter what roll we get today, I'm gonna finish this book because I do have only about like 60 pages to go. But I'm a little disappointed because this book definitely feels like it is setting a ton of stuff up and there isn't gonna be a lot of closure in this first book. It's good, don't get me wrong, but I think I would have liked this book more if I started reading it like as it came out instead of knowing that there's 2 other books following this. And in those 2 books are going to, like, those books are going to have the answers that I am looking for right now. But I don't know if I like this book enough to find and read those 2 other books, if that makes sense. And that sucks because I'm really enjoying the second half of this book. I just know that, like, the answers, or excuse me, the questions that I have, I'm not going to be getting the answers for in the last like 60 pages unless a bunch of dramatic stuff starts happening back to back. And I don't know if there are like any characters in this book that like I actually like or agree with. Like the book does a good job of like showing you a bunch of various viewpoints of the people that live in this world, of the people that want the aliens to invade and like destroy humanity, and the people who don't want to destroy humanity, right? And you would think that like, hey, I should be like fully against the people who like want to destroy humanity and like fully for the people that want to like preserve Earth as it is. And I'm not for some reason, and maybe that says something about me. But I think overall, I'm 79% of the way through this book. I am on page 331 out of 399. Let's see how many pages we have to read today. And I think, like I said, I'm going to finish this book either way, but I'm trying to figure out what the next book that we should read is. I think I said at the beginning of this video that the other book I would read is my continuing of A People's History of the United States, but I don't think I'm going to do that because I kind of like finishing books in these videos, and this is like a 900-page novel. We do have, however, the TBR jar, which I think I'm going to remake. I think I'm going to do another video where I remake my TBR jar because this is kind of sad. Let's get our roll done for today, and then if we have to pull from the TBR jar, we will pull from the TBR jar. Let's see what it is today. 12. I should be more excited. 12, oh my God. So that's 120 pages. That'll get us all the way through this book as well as 60 pages. Whoa, come on, follow me. As well as 60 pages of another book. And I think we're gonna bust out the TBR jar for this. I am still reading A People's History of the United States, and I actually just started reading Guns, Germs, and Steel on audiobook, so I've been enjoying that. I think I'm only like 2 hours into that, but it's been really interesting so far. But I think for this, I kind of want to do a different book. Let's try something different out. So we're shaking, we're moving. All right, what's this? A longer book, a longer title. We are going to be reading Sherlock, I don't know if y'all are going to be able to have this focus. Sherlock Holmes 1 and 2, which actually I have right here. You can definitely tell that one of these is a lot more used than the other, but this is the complete novels and stories of Sherlock Holmes 1 and 2. Now, I have read the entirety of 1 before, but I've been wanting to reread Sherlock Holmes for a while now. And then when I was in Chicago a few years ago at Afterwards Bookstore in Chicago, which was really, really dope. And the owner there was really nice too. I got volume 2 because I'd never started reading volume 2 before. So we're obviously going to start with volume 1, and I think 60 pages gets us a pretty decent chunk of the way there. That gets us pretty decent into A Study in Scarlet, which is the first Sherlock Holmes novel that we're going to be reading. That's such a good combination. So we go from like very scientific, very science fiction book to like very old school. When was this written? This was probably like 1800s or whatever. I got all this for $6.95 in like 2012. That's probably like $100 now with inflation. But I'm going to put these two books aside. We have to finish the three-body problem and then get started on Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if I have a lot of time to do that before I have to go into work today, but I will bring in my Kindle so I can get some reading done on my break, or at least try to. I hope that y'all like this and then we could do it again more in the future. But I think I actually have to start getting ready for work now. Either way, I'm going to read what I can, check in with y'all tonight. I definitely will check in with y'all tonight, and then we could start reading Sherlock Holmes either tonight or tomorrow morning.
Many hours later.
All right, y'all, so normally when I finish a book or when I'm filming one of these scenes where I'm talking about what I'm reading, I usually like to take 5 to 10 minutes. So, like, I don't want to script out my videos, but just have an idea of what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, I've been talking to myself for like 20 or 30 minutes now about the ending of this book. So I thought, let me just turn the camera on and kind of figure out my thoughts as I'm talking to you guys. So I finished the book. I finished The Three-Body Problem by, let me get the author's name real quick, by Liu Cixin, translated by Ken Liu. Again, I apologize. Focus. There we go. I apologize if I said either of those names incorrectly, but I'm struggling to understand what I'm going to rate this book, and I was hoping that by talking to y'all I could kind of figure it out. So my biggest problem with this book, let's start there. My biggest problem with this book is that it is very obviously, kind of very blatantly, like the beginning of something, right? It is like, even if I didn't know that there were 2 other books after this one in this trilogy, I would assume that they're setting a lot of stuff up. This entire 400-page book, 399-page book, whatever, is entirely set up for the rest of the series. I keep looking over here because that's where I have the Kindle, but one of the things I loved most about reading this book was the ending, right? And not specifically the ending of the story, but the ending of the physical book, because there were postscripts by both the author and the translator. And I didn't even know what postscripts were, and I guess they're kind of more fleshed out acknowledgments, but in the translator and the author's postscripts, they essentially go through their own personal history, but also their history with the book, kind of why they wrote about it. The translator talked about kind of the rules that they had for themselves about translating, and that made reading this feel so much more like personal. Like, you don't really see that a lot in books, or maybe I'm just not reading the right book. Sorry if I hit the mic there, but you don't get to see like an author just very blatant, just outright say like, hey, I worked really hard on this. This is the amount of work I put in. This is like my history and my connection with the text that I'm writing. I hope you enjoy because we put a lot of work into this. And the translator had their own version of that, and I love that so much. I might make a video about this in the future. One of the reasons I was talking to myself for so long about what I was going to say here was because I was essentially like mentally scripting out the other video. But one of the things I love, and you don't see it a lot in literature, which is why I think this is sticking with me so much, is people just blatantly saying, hey, I worked really hard. I did this really cool thing. I hope you like it. Like, I'm happy I'm getting a lot of praise for it, but I worked really hard and I want everyone to know that I did this really cool thing. To see that in literature, in a book, is not something that I've seen very often. If y'all have any like moments where you've seen that, please leave them in the comments down below, because like I genuinely want to experience that more. But reading these postscripts from the author and the translator just made me want to read more from the author and the translator, especially the translator, who essentially said, hey, like, I tried to do my best job to honor and to respect the original writing, and I tried my best, and I know I'm not perfect, but I went crazy and I hope you enjoy. Like, that's so cool to hear that from someone in the literary space. With this book being very obviously, very blatantly the beginning of this very long saga, I think the best I could give this book is a 3 stars, which sucks because I want to read more, like I said, from the translator and specifically from the author, but it's just this book is obviously setting something up that I don't know if I'm going to read in the future. And now that I have finished The Three-Body Problem, we are going to move on to Sherlock Holmes, The Complete Novels and Stories, Volume 1 by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. You can definitely tell that I read this book a lot because it has seen better days. And one of the reasons I'm really happy that we pulled this out of the TBR jar was because I've been meaning to read this for a while. I think I read this book when I was a little too young, not because of the subject matter. I just don't think that I was able to kind of appreciate like all the storytelling and all the world building that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was able to do. Again, I was 12 or 13. I was worried about how fast I could run in track. So I'm gonna get resituated. I'm gonna put on the lo-fi. I'm gonna get my water, and we're gonna knock out 60 pages of Sherlock Holmes. Let's go. Y'all, I messed up. I thought tomorrow was the last day of the challenge, but it's actually today because tomorrow's when I'm going to start editing this very video. So I finished my 60 pages of Sherlock Holmes last night, and I think I actually read like 62. But one of the things that I forgot about reading Sherlock Holmes, something that I discovered about myself, if something about this book was that for some reason reading this book puts me to sleep. And not even like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's writing is boring in any way, because I think it's really interesting and really cool and really in-depth, and because this is one of like the bigger books, or like one of the first bigger books that I read when I was younger. Like a part of me will always feel attached to Sherlock Holmes. Whatever it is, it's just like I be getting sleepy. So I think I started reading this at like 11:30 last night, and I don't think I finished until like 2 or 3 in the morning. Not because 60 pages is like a bunch of pages to read or something like that, but because I kept passing out and waking up and going back to sleep and waking up and going back to sleep. But with that in mind, we're going to be doing our last roll of the video, and I hope y'all like these videos. Like I said, being able to roll dice and read some books is like a dream for me. So if y'all like these videos, like, comment, subscribe, all that good business. And if you have any ideas on how I can make these videos any better, honestly, I don't like this angle. Nah, I'm playing. All right, we have our dice right here. Let's see what number we get for the last day of BNR episode 2, and we got 4. So looking at the contents page here, it looks like A Study in Scarlet is about 120 pages long. We're gonna pretend it's at 6 so we can read 60 pages tonight and finish A Study in Scarlet. That said, it has been a pretty busy morning for me, so I am not able, excuse me, to get any reading done. So I actually have to start getting ready for work, and then when we come back, we're gonna get all our reading done before we go to sleep. So I'll catch y'all in what will be about 8 to 9 hours for me, but a few seconds for you. So, all right, y'all. I don't know if you could tell by the general vibe of the environment, is the next day, and I'm gonna keep it 8 more than 92. I did not do my Sherlock Holmes reading last night. I get home from work, boy hits me up. He's like, yo, Baldur's Gate in a few hours? I say, bet. That turned into the homie and I playing Baldur's Gate until like 4 in the morning, which was like really, really awesome, and it was a fun time. I've tried to limit my video game playing to the weekends, and you know, the weekend started and I said, let's go. But since yesterday was the last day of the challenge anyway, I'm going to start editing this actual video in about an hour or 2, but I still have to get my 60 pages out of the way. I stopped at page 61. I want to thank y'all for watching this video. Like I've said a few times on this channel, kind of rolling dice and reading books are like 2 of my favorite things to do. So the fact that I can kind of combine that into one thing has been really fun and really cool. I've been posting videos every Monday, essentially for like 8 or 9 months now. So we're about to hit the 1-year anniversary of the Chris Reads YouTube channel, which is really cool. So whether you've been here from the beginning, excuse me, or whether you've been here like from right now from this video, I want to say thank you. I appreciate all the love and support that I get on these videos. If you like these videos, anything I say, anything I do, like, comment, subscribe, all that good business. We're gonna end this video with a little time lapse of me reading my 60 pages. I've been planning like the next 2 or 3 videos out in my head, and I think this is gonna be like the best 2 or 3 video run that I've been on in the history of this channel. So if you're interested in keeping up with that, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Let's do this time lapse. Let's read our 60 pages. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch y'all next time. Let's go.